And there we go.
I'm surprised I haven't embarrassed myself more on the internet these days. Hello, everybody.
How's it going, everyone? It's your man Big Sto here, but with Nora, of course. I was about to do like the YouTube intro. That was about to be really bad. But I'm here with Nora. We're actually here for episode 50. Wow.
You guys, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Never in my wildest dreams I think I'd have 50 episodes of anything.
No,
let alone on YouTube. So halfway to 100. How you feeling about that?
It like just hit me, and I think I'm a little bit shocked because I never in my life, like you said, I never in my life thought I would be on video. I'm such a behind the scenes person. I never in my life thought I would be on YouTube, like to be like, I have a YouTube channel. I'm really proud of us.
Yeah.
I'm
Same.
I'm like really, really proud of us because like office hours is like such an act of love, I think, for both of us, and we are awkward and embarrassing all the time. But fuck it, we do it, and I feel embarrassed. I feel like I embarrass myself all the time.
Y'all definitely, I definitely do as well.
Like figure out if my couch is crooked or if my posture is bad. Like we're just out here being ourselves. And anyways, happy 50th. I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else though. So happy 50th episode.
Yeah. No, this is crazy. Here's to 100, hopefully. Yeah. So here we are for episode 100. Episode 100? No, episode 50. Definitely episode 50. And we're talking about alternatives to streaming. And I feel like it's a common question, and something we get a ton about.
Yes.
How do I land on playlists? How do I get my streaming numbers up? How do I, what's the one they always say? How do I hack the algorithm? And so, one of our jobs as, people in the industry or whatever, specifically like working independently, is to kind of talk about how you don't need streaming to be successful in the industry. And I want to start with this because I feel like I always say this like in the middle of the episode. We are never saying to not use DSPs. We are never saying that. We completely understand that it's a necessary evil, especially in this day and age. But I think, I think artists get so wrapped up in, I have to have so many monthly listeners, I need to be in X amount of playlists, and then I'll be successful. And I promise you, whatever number you think that is, obviously, like, if you hit 1 million, like that's something else. But even then, even if you hit 1 million, it's not like you're getting $1 million. Wait, not even close to that.
Pause. Because let's talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like, sorry.
Why? No, because I think we take some things for granted, but for a lot of hey Candace, hi Sandroid, glad y'all are here with us. Y'all, as always, office hours is interactive, so drop your questions and thoughts and comments in the chat. Are you making faces at Candace's comment?
Yeah, she's trying to spell office, and she spelled officer twice.
Okay. Trying to feel some kind of way, Candace. No, but this is what I was saying is that I think we take things for granted, but for a lot of artists who are new to the industry, looking in from the outside, streaming is the way. I gotta be on Spotify. Right. So I just want to break it down a little bit. Right. And I think just to kind of reiterate what Sto was saying is that it is, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Cheetah Girl says, okay, so why I thought this was about alternatives to streaming, as in going live like on Instagram or Twitch, which might be part of your strategy. So we're going to talk about all of that. The thing to remember is, so when you put your music on a DSP, you're only getting a tiny percentage of that money back. So different platforms have different returns, but sometimes it's literally like less than a penny. So I actually push back against the idea that, sorry, y'all's comments are distracting me in the best way, Candace. You're making me laugh. streaming platforms are not DSPs are not even a necessary evil. You don't have to be on a DSP if that's not part of your strategy. So even when you enter like the musical ecosystem, you can decide for yourself, where is my audience? How are they consuming music? And where do I want to be? You can absolutely decide that you never want to be on Spotify and only put your music on Bandcamp and only sell your music on vinyl and only be on Instagram and Twitch and Discord. And that's fine. So part of what I hope you take away from today's conversation is that you have options and it's within your power to choose how you distribute your music and where, versus just assuming you have to be on Spotify and you have to be on Apple and you have to be on these places. And we talked about this in another episode, in a previous episode, but also to remember that like DSPs are a US thing, right? Spotify, they're not accessible in all countries. And so if you're trying to reach a global market, there actually might be better music distribution channels or methods for you to use. So for me, that's kind of the big picture in the context of this conversation is, yes, like you can give your money to a CD Baby or Audio Mac and they'll kind of get your music out there and distribute it for you. But you still get to do the work of thinking if that's even part of your strategy. So having that strategy first and foremost, I think is like super, super foundational, especially if you're trying to make money off of selling your music.
Right.
Which streaming is not the way that you're not making money off of streaming. You're making money off of how many streams you get, and then you leverage that.
Right. And that's like, yeah, like the foundation of this conversation is just understanding like putting all your eggs in the basket of streaming will usually leave you disappointed. Like you're not getting, and again, like because that's not to say that it can't be a useful tool as well if you're running it right and stuff like that. But I feel like so many artists are like, oh my God, I have to be streaming. I have to be on playlists. I have to like focus on that. When, you know, we'll talk about some numbers on the other side later where it's like, you really don't have to engage in streaming if you don't want to. One CD sale of $10 is probably close to like 1,000 streams. I haven't done the math, and honestly, I might do that here in a second because I used to do that all the time.
I think that's about accurate.
Yeah. It's like it's below 1,500. I know that much. And so, like again, like I know most of you could sell a CD at this exact moment, or oh my God, a digital album. Believe it or not, people still buy those. So yeah, you don't have to engage in streaming if you really, really don't want to. There are, especially in this day and age, there are tons of alternatives to make a profit and to still build up your fan base at the same time.
So what do you say? Because when you say like people will buy CDs, and always the response is, well, nobody buys CDs anymore. What's your response to that concern from artists?
I mean, my first concern is if CDs really weren't viable, you wouldn't walk into a Target, you wouldn't walk into a Walmart and see them all over the place. Now, sure, the quantities are like lower and stuff, and sure, I mean, you don't see independent artists in there all the time, of course, but whether it's your record store, whether it's other digital labels and stuff like that, like there are so many labels that are online that are constantly distributing CDs, constantly distributing, you know, physical products. And there we go. Like, I mean, my CD collection isn't huge, but like, especially now that we're in this day and age where literally at the snap of a finger, music can just disappear. Mm-hmm. And unless someone is talking about it, unless that you're following that person, like there's like, it's really scary to think about it. Like if you sit down and really track, like, okay, if Spotify goes down or Tidal goes down or whatever, any of these distributors, that art can be gone forever. So having physical copies, and buying digital stuff, like people collect music, people want to listen to it. So to have it on a platform that could literally disappear at a moment's notice, just it scares me sometimes.
That's such a good point. It's also so dystopian, but like really real.
Exactly.
That we live and like y'all, we live in a world, especially now, where like slowly all of our rights are being taken away. and like censorship is really real and present. And so if they're banning books, it's not far from the time where they're going to start banning your favorite artists, and they're going to start banning musicians, and they're going to start banning songs and albums and things like that. And so there is something really valuable about Candace is saying, I was at the beach once when Spotify went down and I was very pissed. And I didn't have my iPad or her other music. There's something really valuable in having physical, tangible things that you own that the state or that corporations can't interfere with. And this is part of also understanding who your audience is. Because, and Candace, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to use Binact as an example. If your audience is like core, if you know who your customer is, and you know if you're an independent artist or you're an early career artist, and you have fans who like that new music discovery, if you have fans like Candace who want to support artists, they're going to be willing to buy something that physically represents you. They're going to be willing to put money behind you. And so so part of that is understanding who your customer is and creating opportunities for them to support you outside of streaming that reflects their values and reflects their journey as a customer, or their buying habits and things like that. Serial Sensei says, you better sell some vinyl so I can buy it even though I have no record player at all, right?
At all. Emphasis on at all.
And so this is also part of like thinking about art beyond just the music, but thinking of your product as, what does your album cover look like? Because people want to put vinyl for display. Or what does your CD cover art look like? Because people want to put that on the wall. It's the same reason, like, y'all know, like, I love books. I can get an audio book. I can get it on my Kindle, but I like having the book to hold. I like putting it up in like my space, and music is the same thing. So if you've done the work, and we talk about this all the time, if you've done the work of building a relationship, getting your audience excited and invested in you as a person, you as an artist, and then the project you're putting out, then it's not a big reach for them to spend 10, 15, even $20 on something that they can have physically to represent you. So it's not, if we say this all the time, it's not about the music. It's about this product that represents their relationship to you. So they have something physical and tangible to express this kind of emotional connection.
And it could be even more than $20. I can't tell you how many people I'm seeing charge a ton for digital records, like because thankfully artists are starting to see the value in like everything that they're putting in. And so I go back to buying the vinyl, even though they don't have a record player. Like that's what I used to do. I used to do that all the time. Like I had like maybe 5 to 10 records before I actually got a record player. And yeah, and then here we go. Like more examples. Like I get hurt when the albums are digital only. And again, there's nothing wrong with like selling your album digitally for sure, so people can actually own it and own the files and stuff like that. But actually, as I'm rambling on here, I'm realizing as we hit the halfway point, like what other alternatives do we have to streaming? Because again, especially in this day and age, like there's so much stuff that can be done. So yeah.
So we've already talked about physical copies, right? We've talked about CDs, we've talked about vinyl, we've talked about digital albums. You could put your music on like little external drives and distribute them or sell those, especially for like DJs or people in international spaces. I think all artists should be on Bandcamp, which arguably is or is not a DSP, depending on how you look at it. But the beauty of Bandcamp is you get so much, and Bandcamp should really give us money. This is not an endorsement. We don't get money from Bandcamp.
Right. Trust me, we wish. Like,
really sheesh. If anyone has a plug. Anyways, but it's one of the benefits of something like Bandcamp is you set your own prices, you keep a way higher percentage of your money, and you get a ton of information about your customers. So with a DSP, you don't know who's listening to you on Spotify. And the analytics that they give you really aren't helpful because all you get are kind of demographic factors, but you don't get emails. You don't know who listened, really. You don't know anything about them. Whereas on Bandcamp, you have an email that lets you add them. They get to be added to your newsletter. You get to see kind of how they're interacting with you. You can, I'm seeing so much support for Bandcamp in the comments. So that's the other thing is you can go, there are if you are going to be on, because I see Two Ravioli is saying DSPs are so convenient. And I think this is an important point. They are convenient, but as an artist and as an artist building a business, you really have to think about, is the convenience leading you to your goal? Or is it convenient because then it's off your hands and you don't have to think about promotion and marketing? So convenience might not be, like, music business is not always convenient. Being an entrepreneur is not always convenient. So yes, DSPs might be convenient, but they might not be effective for you and what you want to do with your career. So that's a decision you really have to think about strategically. And I think Bandcamp gives you a lot more flexibility around, you know, getting information, having data, and really starting to build a relationship with your fans so that then when you do other things, they're also kind of in position for you.
Right. And so I wanted to actually bounce off that with Bandcamp. I wanted to make sure I looked it up before I started saying stuff on the internet. Bandcamp only takes out 15% of whatever you're making. Now, I get it. Like, yo, like what? They shouldn't be taking away nothing. And I agree with that. And that's why you should have a website, so you ain't got to pay none of those fees, okay? But on the other side of that, with Bandcamp, at least if you charge $10 for a record, you're still getting $8.50 back from that. And yes, DSPs are convenient. I said it once. We'll say it again. We'll probably say this on episode 500. We will never say to not use DSPs because they are convenient. I use them. I'm not even going to front on that. I'll buy a record and then still put it on my playlist while I'm trying to run. So, you know, we're not trying to say like one or the other, but when you're trying to genuinely make a profit in music, like, I'm sorry, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, they're not trying to help your bottom line. They don't care. Like, it sucks. Like, it sucks to hear that, especially coming from us, because what do you guys know? But they don't care. They just want to make sure that their subscription numbers go up so that they can keep getting investors and all this other stuff. They don't care about your career or let alone independent artist career. Okay, at least with Bandcamp, and we've already seen it. Bandcamp has stepped up to fight for independent artists, even in the court cases and stuff like that. That has been shown. And there's nothing wrong with being on DSP. Ain't no one saying there's anything against that. All we're saying is, in terms of if you want, you know, the how long does it take to hit 1,000 streams versus selling one digital record? You gotta weigh your options and stuff like that. That's all we're saying. And yeah, go ahead, Nora. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to clarify too. We've been saying DSP, and I just want to define it. What a DSP is,
right.
It's a digital service provider. So essentially, like, all of our technical platforms are DSPs. In this conversation, we're talking about streaming services. So Apple, Tidal, Spotify are kind of the big ones. And so as So said, we're not talking about DSPs are good or bad. We're talking about, as an artist, and again, as an artist who's building out your business, you have to be strategic about what is your distribution method. How are you going to, like, one of the things you have to do as an artist is think about, how am I going to make money? If you want to make this a career for you, you have to think about, how am I going to make money? And if you think, well, I'm going to put my music on Spotify, and then people will stream my music and I will become sustainable as an artist, that's not
let alone rich.
Yeah, not even rich, like sustainable as an artist. Then you have to think about, okay, then you have to do the math. How many streams do I need to get to make them as much money as I need? So if getting that number is out of reach for you right now, or is not a goal for you right now, then you have to supplement the earnings, right? Your 0.01 cents per stream. You have to supplement that earning with And it might even be less than that for some of the platforms.
I'm looking it up because I'm curious what it is this year. I haven't looked up in so long.
Thank you.
0.0033.
Yeah.
That's less than a penny, people, per stream.
Yeah. So you have to think about, okay, if I need like 8 million streams to make $1,000 or whatever the math is, then
it's 303,000 streams to make $1,000 on Spotify.
Like, and that, yeah, the number, right? Like, we can get into a whole conversation about the exploitation of labor and like all of that.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to be an entrepreneur through your music and to make music your career, then part of it is really like doing the math and looking at these numbers and how realistic is it for you to get those streams. And if it's not, then this is where the alternatives come in. And that's where you sell vinyl or you sell merch. We have a whole episode, just a couple episodes back, around merch that I really encourage folks to go back and look at. Another way to, so again, it's not saying DSPs don't have a purpose in your ecosystem, but you also have to think about, is the purpose to make money, or is the purpose to kind of build a buzz, or is the purpose to, like, what is your goal, and then how are you going to leverage that?
Right. Sorry, we were just reading the comment. I was just leaving that dead air. That's my bad. The only part I wanted to piggyback off of is one like kickback I get all the time is yo, Tidal pays out the most. And you're right, Tidal does pay out the most, but you are still getting less than a penny per stream. It's 0.013. So that means you still need almost 80,000 streams just to get a stack. And the only other part I want to add to that is it's not like you're getting that stack in one check or whatever. That's dispersed across, like, as you're hitting different check marks and points like that. So it's you know, sometimes I just want artists to like slow down before you start obsessing about, you know, landing on all these playlists and trying to do all this stuff. Like, is it really worth the energy when you can cultivate the 10, 20, 30, 100, 200 people over here that are actually paying attention to you and getting them to purchase something, even if just for $1 or $5? You are literally, this is not hyperbole or exaggeration, you are literally then making exponentially more than you would have obsessing over streams on insert platform here. I don't care what platform. It doesn't matter if it's Tidal, Amazon. I don't care if it's freaking MySpace Music from the freaking 2000s. You're not making that much money. It's a good passive bag. Like, I love to say that. Like, if you're making money on streaming passively and still selling merch and touring and selling records and stuff like that, oh my goodness, that's great. But, you know, again, putting all your energy into streaming will drive you insane.
I want to go back to what Serial Sensei was saying, because part of it is also thinking about music and like your career in the long term rather than linearly. So if you're like, and so to his point, what DCMA is basically like protecting your music from being pirated, and like that's when
it's copyright takedown, right?
Yeah, and when Instagram says like you can't play this music and they take your video down because you don't have the rights to the music. In many places, it's actually piracy that blows a song up, that gets the artist to be popular, and then the endorsements come, or the brands come, or the partnerships come, or thing like that. And so you have to think about, if the goal is to get paid for every time your music gets played, in the long term, does that hold you back? Especially if we're talking about like other content creators or small platforms. Now, if like fucking Stranger Things is streaming your music, definitely DCMA that shit and make sure you collect your royalties.
Get that money.
But like, if some niche Twitch streamer with like 30, 30 followers, or us here on Office Hours or whatever, play your music, maybe that and we want to support artists and all that stuff. But like,
always, right.
Is there some way that, is it about the direct money transaction, or is there something bigger that can happen? And this is where like I've never heard that saying, but it absolutely makes sense. Stepping over a dime to get a penny is that kind of mentality. And so that's where thinking broadly about the value of your music and what you want to get out of it. The other thing I want to touch on, and shout out to Eric. I see Eric says Bandcamp is on point. Also push that Audio Mac supporters program. I have mixed feelings about Audio Mac, so I don't know what their supporters program is. Maybe so I don't know if you want to say anything on that, or we can.
No, I know a bit about the supporters program. I can't pretend like I know everything about it. I believe in Audio Mac as a platform and stuff like that, but I can't pretend I know everything about their supporters program.
So we'll look into it if y'all have like questions about that specifically. But going back to this question of like alternatives, you can also build communities for your fans, like membership communities, where they pay a monthly fee. You know, they pay $3 a month or $5 a month, and they get all kinds of exclusive things. You can create virtual, it doesn't even have to be shows. Like shows are a great way to make money if you're at that stage. But you can also do like private meet and greets or have dinner. I've talked about this a ton of times, like have dinner with your fans or people will always pay for experience. So if you can create an experience that your audience gets to participate in, that's 20, 30, 40, 60 bucks, right? That you can charge in a recession still, that people will happily pay to say that they had that experience. And so part of this like alternatives to streaming is really giving yourself permission to be creative about to be intentional, to be strategic, but to really be creative about where your money comes from and using the music as a stepping stone to something else or as an excuse to do something else with your fans. Yes, Cheetah Girl J says, bring back fan clubs, create a fan club and give them, you're creating all the time. And rather than worrying about how many people saw my Instagram post and, create a special community where they get really good shit from you because they're monthly members, right? And we see this in, people pay for like all kinds of things. I love how active the chat is, y'all. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for celebrating our 50th episode for us. I'm going to do a quick plug. If you haven't yet subscribe, like, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Eric says, supporters allows listeners to donate directly to artists' releases and earn video game type badges and trophies for doing so, but they can also tap into those supporters directly on there. So basically it's like Reddit or like gamified.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do without Audio Mac, right? Like,
right.
So again, like if DSPs
look at your options and stuff.
Right. If DSPs make it easy for your audience to listen to you and something like Audio Mac makes it easy for your audience to support you, you can easily create communities on your own platform. The hope is rather than doing what you saw every other artist do or thinking that this is just what you do, right? Like, oh, it's a necessary evil. Really stop and think about what is my plan as an artist? How will I make an earning? How much do I need to make? And how will I make that money as an artist? And then put together a big picture of where your different streams of income might come from. And look at how big, if it's like a pie chart, right? How big of a piece of that pie is streaming versus what we've talked about, physical CDs or vinyl or shows or merch or fan clubs or, special like experiences or things like that. So it's really about having intentional choice.
The last thing I'll throw in is like, use your general talent, like that you have outside of music. I've talked to so many artists who are into so many different things that have like, I mean, they still have to do with music, but in some cases have nothing to do with music. Whether you're a painter, or maybe you speak, or maybe you host Pilates classes, or maybe you like to run, or you like et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different things, or you like to make resin art or whatever. Like there's a billion different things that people or that you can do to bring in a profit and stuff like that channel like your genuine hobbies and passions and stuff like that. We don't have to be, like Nora said, on this linear trajectory of like, okay, I made an album, therefore I must put it on a DSP. Like, you don't have to do that. And you can use your other talents, passions, hobbies, etc., to bring in a way bigger profit than strictly depending on DSP streaming. All of you that are watching this are talented in multiple ways. I'm certain that if you took a second to think about it, I'm sure there are other things that you can offer, even alongside your music. Like, offer that painting alongside the album, offer that 20-minute session, tarot card session or whatever, along with your album, whatever it is that you're into. There's so many different ways that you can get a profit and connect with your audience at the same time. Don't box yourself in to the playlist and streaming back and forth, because again, like, they don't care about the independent scene. They don't care if you're struggling to get plays. Like, their bottom line continues to go up. Like, you got to go get yours. So consider all the alternatives, not just the ones that we talked about. I'm sure there are others that we didn't even get a chance to cover as well.
I mean, we haven't even started to talk about like bundling packages and how to
exactly.
So that's like a whole thing. The last thing I'll say is, y'all, like, if you need to still work a part-time job while you build your career, you're still a musician. If you if you need to have a side hustle that has nothing to do, you're still a musician. I think there's a lot of pressure or shame in like being a working artist. No, and especially now, like in the world that we live in, where like everything's going to shit and we're in a recession and no one can afford healthcare or housing or all these things, like, to continue, it takes a lot to continue to do art as a business. And so however you need to make it move, it doesn't make you any less of a creative. It doesn't make you any less legitimate as an artist. It doesn't make you any less like valid. You can still claim that like artist or musician mantle. If you got to kind of balance different bags, and that's okay. And I think there's a lot of like shame and stigma and like pressure around that. And so I just wanted to name that in today's conversation. If all you can do is get your music on a DSP because you're
that's okay.
Too depressed, totally okay. We just want to remind you that you have options. And if you want to talk any of this through, I think this is, I think we do episodes that kind of apply to everybody, but I think this conversation in particular is very tailored to everybody. And so if you want to talk it out, Sto and I are both available for consulting and we can get into that. Eric says, I've talked to so many artists who think they have to build an audience before using alternative options. Don't buy into that crap. All you need is one person willing to put out dollars for your pocket. And that's and I'll tell y'all, sometimes the small niche audiences are the one, like that core base, those are the ones that are willing to put more money in you. Like, the more fans you get, the less they want to put money in you oftentimes. So trust your audience, like build that relationship, trust your audience. And then when you show them how you want to be supported, they will do what you ask them. You just got to earn that trust. It's like any other relationship.
Right.
It's like any other relationship.
Right. I always throw out this example. I know Nora's not a big Griselda fan, but they're a prime example. They've been around for 15 years now. And so many people beforehand were like, oh, it's so niche or it's so underground or whatever. Meanwhile, they're selling vinyl for like $200 a clip and, only selling like 100 copies at a time, making crazy bags. And now look at them. The only other part I wanted to put on top of that is like the simple math of it all is like, if 10 people chip in $10, that's $100. Now I get it. That's not a ton of money. That's not like, whatever, but that's like the lowest level. Like, I feel like everybody watching this can get 10 people to chip in $10. So if we just bump it up a little bit. If we get 50 people to chip in $10, that's $500. That's, who cares about monthly listeners or streams and stuff like that? Because you're already, with just 50 people in your corner chipping in a small amount of money, you're making, again, exponentially more than you would have off a certain amount of streams.
Yeah. And okay, last thing, and I feel like maybe we need a part 2 to this episode because there's like so much to go into. I know that it can be really scary to start naming your price. How much do I charge for a
Exactly.
season? How much do I charge for an exclusive event for me? In the beginning, you might not know, so play around. You
Right.
can create sliding scale. You can try and charge $300 for something. Maybe someone will pay it. You can try, name your own price. Like in the beginning, right? Part of figuring out your price point is playing with different prices to find kind of your sweet spot. So I think there's a lot of pressure to figure it out and get it right from the beginning. How? You can't do that until you have a little bit of trial and error with your audience and see what their comfort point is. If you've done your niche work, you know what their budgets look like. So what can they afford? You can create different tiers for different people. So there's a lot of space here to play and experiment. And sometimes you just got to do it until you figure it out. So let that be, I hope, the big takeaway from today's episode is, sorry, I'm looking at the chat. I can't talk and read at the same time. Yes, and this is what I looked at. And
that's why I said,
Griselda is, I mean, they're homophobic and they're misogynistic and all those things. And they've, like, their story, if you take their kind of lyrics out of it, their rise is a really good example. So, and they're homophobic. Like, welcome to hip hop. Welcome to being a woman in hip hop where you constantly have to navigate. Anyways, y'all, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. 50 episodes. If there are things you want to see us talk about, drop it in the comments. If there are episodes you want to see, let me know. Let Sto know. If you have comments on this or questions, we always answer everything, respond to everyone. Share this. Like, the biggest thing you can do is hit that subscribe button and share this with folks, because Sto and I are doing this on our own. We don't get paid. There's no sponsorship. There's no, YouTube is not throwing any money at us, not even those 0.03 cent pennies, which is fine. We do it for the love. Earlier, we shared our CashApp and Venmo and stuff. If you want to support us, we're trying to bring Sto to California so he doesn't suffer in Ohio. But also so we can, like, actually plan and, like, really think about where office hours can grow. Yeah, 50 episodes. Yay!
50 episodes. This might be our longest episode, actually, but definitely one of my favorites. Excuse me.
We didn't even talk about Kyrie coming to LA, possibly.
Because I don't think it's going to happen.
It's just so good.
It's too unrealistic. He already done blew it. Nobody wants to play with that man anymore. Look how bad he blew his stock by doing all this. Anyway, hit the like button, people, before I go on another half-hour rant about how garbage Kyrie Irving is. Hit the like button. Let us know what your alternatives to streaming are. We'll be back in a few weeks. I looked up what the episode was before I hopped on, and now I've completely forgotten. So I have no idea what we're doing here in 2 weeks for episode 51. I think.
We're doing organizing your own tour. This will be good.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Planning your own tour. Something not enough independent artists are doing, because you don't have to be signed to some big label or attached to some big festival to make that happen. Anyway, at this point, this episode is getting to 40 minutes. Hit the like button, subscribe, share it with a friend. All right, we're getting out of here. Get some rest, drink some water, get a website, and